Good evening, thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. We talked to Congressman Warren Davidson about the country's loose spending and if the Federal Reserve's digital dollar is a threat to civil liberties. Day 3 of the Suez Canal being blocked. It could stay that way for weeks. How would that impact global trade? Several retail brands are under attack in China. Some social media users even want the brands out of the country. What's behind it? That and much more coming up at NTD Business. There's still chaos in Egypt as the Suez Canal remains blocked. It's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, critical to global supply chains, but experts say it could take days, even weeks to clear. 3 days ago, a skyscraper-sized ship got stuck there and still not freed. NTD's Colin Fredrickson reports.
One of the largest cargo ships in the world, the quarter-mile-long Ever Given, is wedged sideways across the Suez Canal, blocking several dozen vessels. The ship's Japanese owner issued a written apology, saying they're determined to resolve the situation as soon as possible. It's unclear how long it'll take to free.
There needs to be a time taken to figure out what's the salvage opportunity. In other words, what resources are needed in order to remedy the situation.
Oil-wise, most of the world isn't impacted. Asian countries dependent on Middle Eastern oil don't use the canal. And if you're in North America, on the other side of the world, not much at all. But
if you're European, it has a big impact because a lot of Middle Eastern oil comes through the Suez Canal.
The event questions the reliability of the canal and whether changes need to be made.
But frankly, there's no better alternative than the Suez Canal. The question is, can the Suez Canal be made more reliable than it has been? And it's been pretty reliable. So it's not like we write it off and start over again.
At least 150 other ships are waiting to get through. The canal carries about 12% of world trade each year.
The cheapest and the fastest route, and that's the Suez Canal for all these goods coming from East Asia.
Experts say the 224,000-ton ship could take weeks to refloat.
If it is several weeks or even more, yeah, sure, that will have a big impact, but also on any other port in northwestern Western Europe for that matter.
Workers are still struggling to free the ship. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Good news and bad news on the jobs front. The good news is fewer people applied for jobless benefits last week. Claims on regular state programs dropped to 684,000. That's the lowest number since the pandemic put millions of people out of work last year. Number of people seeking benefits under a federal program also dropped. That's for self-employed or contract workers. The bad news is overall the economy still has a long way to go to recover all those lost jobs. As of the beginning of March, there were nearly 19 million Americans in total receiving some sort of government jobless assistance. It's actually up from the end of February. Leisure and hospitality jobs are particularly hurt by lockdowns and gathering restrictions. But hopefully that will change soon. Even the mayor of New York City is making plans to reopen Broadway theaters in September. The city is putting plans in place for theater workers and theater goers.
100,000 jobs in our theater industry, an economic impact of $15 billion a year. We need it back on every level. And the hope that comes
wants to set up a CCP virus vaccination site for the theater industry on Broadway itself and a mobile vaccination site for off-Broadway workers. The mayor also plans to keep some streets in the area free of cars. City also wants to develop crowd management plans and is seeking state guidance on safety measures. But de Blasio says he's ready to go ahead without the state guidance anyway. If you haven't received your stimulus check yet, you might get it soon. The government is sending out a second batch, bringing the total to 127 million payments worth about $300 billion. The IRS says that includes direct debits to bank accounts, paper checks, as well as debit cards in the mail. And the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department are full steam ahead on more spending. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says now is not the time to worry about the country's debt. He says we could worry about that in the future. And just by the way, the national debt is $28 trillion. It's $250,000 per taxpayer. If you got it? And Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is backing Biden's potentially multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan. Both Yellen and Powell spoke to the House Committee on Financial Services this week. Ohio Rep. Warren Davison was there. Davison's also the founder of the Sound Money Caucus. I asked him if Powell and Yellen feel political pressure to keep these loose money policies in place.
The massive debt has been bipartisan. It's not like one party's been good on the issue. Frankly, if they didn't already embrace that, they probably wouldn't get confirmed as chair of the Fed, right? And so the last piece of it is, it's not like the Federal Reserve chairman is going to come out and say, yeah, if you notice, we've grown our balance sheet because there isn't really a fundamental level of demand for the dollar. We're actively destroying the dollar. I mean, he's not going to go out and acknowledge that in a hearing, even though privately, when you talk to people, not necessarily him, privately, there are people that look in detail at the Fed's policy, and they acknowledge you can't grow M1, M2 supplies at the rate they are and not undermine the value of the other dollars in circulation. And even Chair Powell, Chair Yellen have previously acknowledged that you can't continue to grow the debt faster than you grow the economy, and that's clearly happening.
So it looks like it will continue. From listening to Jerome Powell, Chairman Powell, and the Treasury Secretary, it looks like this will continue. On the flip side, we have China at least saying publicly that they're going to taper back their deficits. They're going to try and implement sounder money policies. How does this make you feel from a competition perspective between the U.S. and China? Where does it leave us?
Well, it leaves me concerned about the dollar as a reserve currency, as global reserve currency. And over time, people will want to settle in RMB. They'll want to settle in things other than the dollar. Christine Lagarde at the European Central Bank's been working on a synthetic currency. Weakening the U.S. dollar would inherently weaken the entire trading program that the United States has benefited from, and it would undermine U.S. national security. So we should be very careful about what we're doing here. The consequences are, really hard to overstate.
Chairman Powell has hinted at a digital dollar, central bank digital currency. Any thoughts on it?
Well, look, China's working on a central bank digital currency and sounder money. I won't say truly sound money in China's case. But here's where we really have a chance to differentiate what China's doing. China's using their monetary system as a system of control, and they're proposing to link their central bank digital currency to their social credit system, where they know virtually everything about everyone. They could filter all the transactions and essentially say, we're not going to bank those people. But if you do these things, we can bank you, and essentially filter all the transactions. Now, sadly, in the United States of America, there are people that look at that and go, "Oh, that's great. We would love to have it." That's scary. If you look at the United States system and our Bill of Rights, we've celebrated and defended civil liberties and freedom. And if you think about central bank digital currencies, a lot of that attention has been generated because of the rise of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in particular. And if you think about the feature of that, it's truly distributed ledger. It's not truly secret, but it is fairly private. And in that sense, it preserves the permissionless nature of cash, right? So with cash, we can give money. We don't need a third party that could filter the transactions to even get involved. You and I could agree to exchange cash in a way that you can't do with third-party applications. And because of the internet age, there's inherently been a third party until there was Bitcoin. There were some precursors like eGold, DigiCash, things like that. But until you got some sort of digital money that made it permissionless, you didn't have the real features of cash. And the question on central bank digital currencies to me is, can the United States preserve this feature, or will China's more authoritarian control system be in place? Because they will use money as a system of control, and historically we've used the monetary system differently.
So if it were to be brought in here in the United States, what kind of political effort would there need to be to preserve these civil liberties? Would it be a big undertaking?
I think it's a huge undertaking because really the status quo in our financial system continues to erode privacy protections for American citizens. Of course, we want to catch criminals, we want to catch terrorists, we want to catch money launderers and tax evaders. But the excuse for that has really turned all money service businesses and financial institutions, banks, into part of a surveillance state to collect and report on their customer base. We have to find a way to blend those safeguards with, a different architecture. And I think that's one of the most important features of blockchain and distributed ledger technology if done correctly. There are working groups, but I'm afraid they're essentially abandoning that and saying, hey, we want the feature of a central authority to control everything, quote, just to keep us safe. But when you say just to keep it safe, that's kind of what China's pitch is on the Great Chinese Firewall. It's just to keep it safe. It's really also just to filter all the information and control the entire population. So it's a dangerous path, and I think it's a dangerous time because inherently it is going to have to change, both because of the technology and because of the stress on the dollar due to the current fiscal and monetary policies.
It's a brave new world. Congressman Warren Davison, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for covering it.
The Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen admits taxes will need to go up to fund the new infrastructure project. And naturally, not everyone's happy about it. The Job Creators Network is one of them. It's an advocacy group that believes government policies are getting in the way of economic prosperity. And to let President Biden know what they think of his new plans, they've put up a pretty interesting sign in New York City. NTD's Phil Zoe spoke with them.
Right here in the heart of Times Square, there's a new billboard. It's criticizing President Biden's tax plans. You can see it right above me here. It says, Biden wants to raise taxes on small businesses, not on our watch. The Job Creators Network made the sign.
Biden has declared war on small business.
When critics ask how can they be so disrespectful to a sitting president,
What's really disrespectful is the thought that they're even contemplating raising taxes on our small business owners after they had to survive the 2020 pandemic.
President Biden says a majority of the new tax breaks will go to people making less than $90,000 a year.
And how much for the top 1%? Zero. Top 1% get zero.
But many small businesses reinvest the money they save back into their workers.
I was able to give bonuses, raises, incentive programs. I even pay 100% health care.
But with Biden's new policies, that might all change.
It would hurt not just the employee, but of course the family, and then ultimately the community, because you're not able to do as much as you were going to do before.
Instead of hiking taxes and handing out free money, the Job Creators Network says the government should help people learn new skills so they can make money themselves. The new billboard will stay up for 3 weeks. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
Stocks rose today in a late-day rally. The Dow rose nearly 200 points, 0.62%. S&P 500 gained 20 points, 0.52%. The Nasdaq added 16 points, or 0.12%. GameStop soared today after collapsing yesterday. It's up over 50%. Other so-called meme stocks popular with retail investors also surged today. Looks like someone got their stimulus checks anyway. The Fed Chair Jerome Powell told NPR earlier today that the Fed is going to gradually roll back its monthly bond purchases. With the 10-year Treasury yield pretty much unchanged though on the news. Oil prices were lower, WTI and Brent both down about 4% today. Energy companies also lower. And the race is on for the first Bitcoin ETF. That would be like a stock listing that tracks the price of Bitcoin or Bitcoin-related companies. It's the idea anyway. Financial firm Fidelity is applying to launch its Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. The ETF will be called Wise Origin Bitcoin Trust. It would hold Bitcoin and track Bitcoin prices from major crypto exchanges. Bitcoin, of course, surged to an all-time high of nearly $62,000 earlier this month, back at $52,000 now. And earlier this week, former Trump advisor Anthony Scaramucci jumped into the fray for his own Bitcoin ETF. He's partnering with Skybridge Capital and joining forces with First Trust Advisors. But whether the SEC will approve them still remains to be seen. The agency hasn't granted any applications for a Bitcoin ETF yet. Famous retail brands in China, and it looks like fashion retailer H&M is getting cancelled there because it stopped using cotton from China's Xinjiang region. That's where the Chinese regime is suppressing Uyghur Muslims. H&M made the decision a while back, but the statement was reportedly just picked up by Chinese netizens. A group linked to the ruling Communist Party recently posted a statement on Chinese social media site, and outrage ensued. Chinese state media is now saying H&M is, quote, no longer at all fashionable. Major Chinese e-commerce stores are dropping the brand, and some social media users are even telling the company to leave the country. And more brands are being dragged into the action too, including Nike and Adidas. They also expressed concerns about what's happening in Xinjiang. In response, H&M said Wednesday it was committed to long-term investment in China, but it will also comply with guidelines for responsible business conduct. And China is all set for a new investment agreement with the European Union, or at least it was. Beijing just sanctioned some European lawmakers for speaking out against the regime's human rights abuses. So, is the new deal in jeopardy? NTD's Patrick Hayden talked to a China expert.
China has issued sanctions on EU politicians in retaliation for the EU's sanctioning of Chinese officials linked to forced labour in China's western Xinjiang region. One China expert says the EU should tear up the EU-China Comprehensive Agreement on Investment, and it's time for the EU to stand up for its values.
In the end, China respects only one thing, and that's strength. China doesn't respect diplomatic norms. China doesn't respect strongly worded letters or emails or complaints. It respects strength. And if the EU is serious that it objects to what has gone on here, then it needs to respond with the only thing that China will actually respect and deal with and deviate its future behaviour accordingly, which is strength.
Armstrong says if the EU does pull the deal, then someone will be targeted internally within Beijing for the failure.
For China, it's something different. It has become a badge of pride. It has become part of its self-recognition, or a status symbol as such, for their ability to negotiate deals with powers on the global stage. And it's also part of its efforts to tear Europe away from the United States and into its own grasp. So for China to give this up will be incredibly difficult.
He says that China's sanctioning of EU members who are standing up for human rights is a poke in the eye for Western values.
To so thoroughly mock the institutions, the values, beliefs of the West, the tools we use against them, so as to denigrate them. We shouldn't fall for this trick, and we should remember that, as in all conflicts, there is a right side and a wrong side, and that the West is standing up for the values that we know from our history help to make us free, help to make us safe, help to make people happy, and we should be proud of that.
Armstrong says we should defend Western traditional values against those who threaten them. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Major Chinese tech stocks listed in the United States and Hong Kong got hammered today. It's the day after the SEC adopted a new Trump-era law targeting them. It threatens to delist companies that don't comply with U.S. auditing standards for 3 years in a row. Companies will have to prove they aren't owned or controlled by a foreign government. They'll also have to name any Chinese Communist Party officials sitting on their boards. Some analysts say U.S.-listed Chinese firms may just be unable to comply with U.S. accounting requirements because they could risk violating Chinese law. They call them Chinese state secrets. Still to come. Spring has sprung and Lowe's is offering free gardening kits. Find out how you can get one. And planning a vacation? We have tips on what you need to know if you're traveling this year. That and more after the break.
We can't control political volatility, inflation, massive government debt, or the wild swings of the stock market. But we can control where we put our money. Gold is easily outperforming the stock market the last 20 years. Protect your money. Buy gold. For your free direct bullion guide to buying gold, call 1-800-757-7050. During the 2008 recession, Americans lost over $2 trillion from their 401ks. For many people, retirement was no longer an option. But do you know what tried and true investment nearly doubled its value following the recession? Gold. Protect your money. Buy gold. For your free direct bullion guide to buying gold, call 1-800-757-7050. Start your collection today.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Lowe's is celebrating spring with a new giveaway. The home improvement chain is giving out a free Garden to Go project kit to customers next month. The kits include a variety of gardening products like saplings, seeds, even recipes. But first you'll have to register for them. Registration kicks off on April 1st with the first kits being given out on April 8th. You can pick them up curbside if you want to. Which one you receive all depends on when you register, and Lowe says it'll put more details on its website. If your favorite part of the day is a glass of wine after work, what if having a glass was your work? Well, the winery in Sonoma, California is offering a real good job to someone with a passion for wine. The Murphy Good Winery is offering free rent and $10,000 a month for 1 year position. If you don't know winemaking, no worries. It comes with on-the-job training, even 30 cases of wine. The family-owned business first launched the position in 2009 and thought it was about time to uncork it again. Applicants should send a video resume explaining why this would be their dream job. The winemakers are also interested in your social media following, particularly on Instagram. Gotta get those selfies. You can learn more on murphygoodwinery.com. And after more than a year of pandemic, many are eager to take a vacation. Mandy Geither has what you need to know if you plan to travel this year.
As more vaccines become available, more Americans are expected to travel.
People are going to venture out.
AAA's Jeanette McGee says to ask questions before booking.
If you're planning vacations at a hotel and are excited to use the pool may or may not be open. Hotel restaurants may or may not be open, as well as health facilities.
Hotels may also have new protocols like virtual check-in, and if flying,
not all the in-flight amenities are going to be available. So are food and beverages available for you? That's something you need to contact the airlines to understand.
AAA says road trips are always popular over the spring and summer. The agency expects this year to be no different.
It gives you the convenience of your own car, you decide who you're traveling with, where you're going, and when you're stopping.
But beware, AAA says gas prices are climbing and may continue to be through the summer.
Today's national average is $2.87. It's the most expensive price we've seen since actually May of 2019.
And if you do venture out, AAA says it's a good time to have a travel agent.
They can help you navigate travel insurance if those are options for you. They can help you understand what's open and what's not, both domestically and internationally.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
An immunologist in Mexico has invented a nose-only mask. He says it's the only kind of face covering that can protect you while eating. The video shows him and a colleague demonstrating how to eat while using the nose mask. You wear it under a full mask, which you take off during mealtime. Johns Hopkins University says nose coverings are important. The cells that give people a sense of smell are a key entry point for the CCP virus, but the World Health Organization recommends a face mask that covers the nose, mouth, and chin. And the CDC says multi-layered masks are preferable over single-layer ones. Just be careful, don't wear it on a first date. And the ghost kitchen concept is taking hold as takeout orders and delivery requests skyrocket. A ghost kitchen is an all-in-one kitchen and delivery service. One firm in Dubai says it's doubled the number of restaurant partners it's worked with last year. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Sushi, pizza, wraps. They're all coming from the same bustling ghost kitchen, and thousands of restaurants are experimenting with these virtual spin-offs. The demand for food delivery has surged during the pandemic. Third-party delivery companies like Deliveroo and Uber Eats have also raised expectations for speed and convenience. UAE-based Katopi takes the concept one step further by doing all the cooking too.
So the problem we're trying to solve for the restaurants is giving them the ability to grow without any capex needed or without the need to actually hire staff and manage the business themselves.
Once a restaurant partner is on board, its workers are trained to cook all of their dishes. They're prepared, packaged, and delivered from one of the firm's 60 kitchens, and business is booming. Bulaut says the firm has doubled the number of restaurant partners it worked with last year.
During the pandemic, half our restaurants were shut down because malls were shut down. And so we had to find vehicles of growth. We had to keep the business going. Katopi was a perfect foil in that they had...
Katopi is operational in the UAE, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. Last month, it launched a new service in Jeddah and is looking to open 5 kitchens in the Saudi city before the end of this year. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
As the latest business updates for today, you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. But for NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.